Sorry. Welcome. I'm Kathy Kuntz with the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, and I'm super excited that today we're going to feature the City of Middleton's sustainability practices, their sustainability purchasing plan, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Hilyard to kick things off, and then she'll throw it to Laura.
Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kelly Hilyard. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at the City of Middleton, and I also staff the city's Sustainability Committee, which is a 10-person mayor-appointed committee that's made up of citizen engaged sustainability folks, one voting high school member, and one alder liaison. And the Sustainable Purchasing Plan really arose from a grassroots effort 2 or 3 years ago, really led by city residents and members of our local 350.org group. And they were very frustrated with the city that we weren't moving fast enough towards our climate goals to become fossil fuel free. And they really pushed the committee to look at an old, sort of defunct sustainability purchasing plan we already had. And they even went as far as to submit entire written chapters to the committee to get us started. And so at that time, about 2.5 years ago, our now city alder, but at the time was our committee chair, recognizes that we needed direction from Common Council to work on this further because it was going to be a longer process. So she wrote a succinct 3-page sustainable purchasing policy and asked Common Council to direct the committee to provide an implementation plan for that sustainable purchasing policy. So I'm going to turn this over to Laura Buchholz, who is currently the vice chair of our committee right now, and she's a real change agent for the city. She's taken the lead to draft the purchasing policy implementation plan for the past 2 years, and she's going to talk about our evolving process and how we adapted our process along the way, and also how she is balancing expectations with the committee and the residents as well as city staff. She's a really great technical writer and listener and aggregator of multiple viewpoints, which is really important in this process. And she's found a real niche, I think, in understanding city processes and workflows, which can take some time. And it's really been a lot about co-creation to better serve sustainability citywide. So I'll turn it over to you, Laura. Thank you.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you and welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here today. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen here so that you can kind of see our plans. So can everybody see that? Okay, good. Got the thumbs up. So this is our sustainable purchasing policy and plan development. And I will be your plan whisperer for today, taking you through all the steps. So essentially, we want to cover the policy and plan development so that you know the steps we went through. Also discuss timelines and some of the training strategies that we had, and then we'll finish up with lessons and strategies to help you move forward. I will have some breaks throughout, so please ask questions and we'll take you through our whole process. So first, in developing a policy and plan, as Kelly said in the beginning, we started with a 2-stage process. And we wrote and adopted the policy first, and then really worked on adopting the implementation plan. And this helps because adopted policy is the directive. And adopted policy is not necessarily equal implementation. So developing the implementation plan is really what takes a lot of time. So to save you some time, make sure that council is on board with doing this before you get started. And again, ours was very simple and it just included the basics. What's the purpose of this policy? What are the benefits? Who does it impact? And then some basic implementation guidance. In the plan, in the policy, was a directive to create a plan. It was one sentence. That's all you need. It asked for some measurement and it outlined who is responsible for what and that it would need to be maintained over time. So now we get to the hard part, which is developing the implementation plan itself. You want to start with what I would call a polished draft. This was one that by the time we worked together as a committee, we had what I thought was, oh, this is our final thing. Let's send it out to staff. But that was not the case. What we found is that you really need to use an iterative process. And I can't stress enough how much the plan improved going through that process. And one of the things we discovered is that you really want to include a timeline and training sessions. And when you put all that together, you get a pretty effective system. So once you have that polished draft, send it out to staff. Give them some time via email to review it and go over it. But then once they've had that time, you want to have face-to-face meetings. This is very important because you might have people with differing mindsets. And so you may have put together this whole plan and you think it's awesome and it's great and you see that it's going to turn out wonderful. But it's quite possible that staff has a little bit different view of how this might all work. So you need to capture all that information. And so we held, I think it was 4 group meetings with 13 departmental leaders, and we grouped them together by areas of interest. So you might put police and EMS together because they're going to have some similar concerns. You might put golf and Parks and Rec together. And then I interviewed individually our financial leadership to really understand the procurement process, to identify maybe what some of our challenges were, and the budget process as well. And in that, I took all this together and presented the results to staff during a staff meeting. This shows them that you heard them, you actually listened to what they said. And so I literally collected all their concerns, grouped them together so they could see, okay, we heard your concerns, but we also heard what your great suggestions were on how to polish this, make it better, and what you're looking for. And then after doing that, we presented the next version. So I gave them the overview, flow chart, updated a few things, some categories with measurement. And one of the things that came out was make the measurement easy to find in the document. So this is a shot from our document, prioritization in the document. And so as you can see, these were our priorities. The highest priority we listed at the top, then we kind of went down, so we made it very visual for them that this is what we want to focus on first, this is next, and this is next. And it wasn't just words, it helped them to click through easily. All of these are links in the document, and it helps them to move through the document in a organized fashion. We included guidance sheets for every single category that we wanted to look at. That included a maxim or a rule of thumb, that what do you want to have in the back of your mind? Choose future vision technology over some traditional solutions when you're thinking about powered equipment and fleet. And we included some, questions to help guide their decision making at the time, and then some tools that they would want to work on. We also included beginning measurements. So we had listed all the annual measurements out here, including, if you look at the priority list, okay, this is a number one priority. Where do we want to start? Okay. And at this point, we had a beginning implementation timeline plan where we had everything noted up here. And then we had a bit of a punch list that we wanted to accomplish in each year. We'll cover this a little bit later on in the presentation more in depth. What came out of that second meeting with staff is when we went through all of that, they really wanted a checklist. And this is something that you might want to think in terms of creating this. We tried the very first time to come up with a checklist, and when we ran it through our sustainability committee, our alder commented, "Oh, you're being too prescriptive, take that out." And then when we didn't have a checklist, and staff said, hey, this is a lot. Can you give us a checklist? We put it back in, but we also created it with them. And it's a much better and a much different checklist than we had in the beginning. So you might get directives from above that are different from directives from below, but in doing it together, you'll come up with something that will be really beneficial. Okay. So we took all of this and presented the results to council. And we did this about halfway through just to show our progress and to get a directive to proceed. Do we have what you're looking for here? And they did like it, and they decided, okay, let's go forward and do that. And this is when I presented that staff requested checklist to them. You'll notice that we added in an index measurement and some training tools, all things that came out of that second staff meeting. I also, when we went over the checklist, asked council for some assistance. What do you want us to do with any rebate savings that we might have with these purchases? What about cost thresholds? And these were questions that we as a committee could not answer and that Kelly could not answer. This is something only council could answer. And so we asked for that assistance. They wanted it to go back out to the committees to discuss those things with the committees to see what did committees think about having a premium to cover maybe some additional expenses and then bring it back. So we went out to the committees. We presented to a variety of committees that the city administrator helped us select. Some declined our presentation because they'd already spoken with us previously, and when they did that, had shared it with the committee, so they were already involved. Again, we captured the committee's concerns and their suggestions, and then we went back once again to council, which I'm happy to say that they did adopt it, and they did provide a 20% premium to allow for all sustainable purchases. So I do want to give a shout out to our Common Council for both their emotional support and their financial support in really pushing forward with this agenda. So I thought I'd break here for a second. Do we have any questions about the process that we went through?
There aren't any questions yet, Laura. I'd say keep going.
Okay, so then we'll talk a little bit about the plan. Okay, so here's the implementation timeline. This helps keep you on track. Okay, so you want to put the priorities in there so they can see where we're going, and you want to create a punch list of activities that you want to complete each year as you implement this plan. We started with the big things, like let's go ahead and update our budget request forms. Let's update our quotes and bids language. We want to have a e-procurement system, which would make a lot of that measurement that I mentioned earlier. It'll make it easier to track. Let's deal with the HVAC and natural gas appliances. We also put on here some challenges that we found. So one thing when we were trying to analyze our fuel data, we realized we're getting this in a PDF form. Every time I tried to turn it into an Excel file to analyze it, my computer crashed. Our PDF was over 100 pages long. I can't imagine what Madison would get. And that just doesn't even, that makes it very difficult. So before we can move on to sharing this information at our website, we need to get the raw data. And so what we kind of discovered here is with measurement that instead of doing this, which we described in the plan, we realized, you know what? This could be accomplished through an e-procurement system. This would be easier to track through an e-procurement system. This we can track through our HVAC plan but that's in the future. We can't get all this done right now. What can we do right now? One of the comments that came back from staff was, well, capture what's already being done. So we decided to come up with a questionnaire. I found a research article that looked at an implementation effectiveness index. So that was nice. We were able to start with that. And then I added some open-ended questions. What are you looking for? What's your number one request? What's some sustainability projects that you want to do? What are some additional comments that we can you want to share? And the implementation index was really just a 16 item scale that asked staff about the importance that they think of policies and plans and the rules and standards following that. What are some of your routines? Do you go through this decision making criteria here? And what we discovered was that um, at Middleton, we were actually kind of above average. And on 14 of the criteria, we only kind of fell below average on two, which directed us to some things that we need to work on. And so road construction was one. And we do that through quotes and bids. So that's why it's first on the priority list the first year. And even though cleaning and chemical products, that's maybe a second tier issue, that is something that we can also deal with quotes and bids. So it's like, okay, let's focus on our areas that we need to work on, combined with our priorities. So what we're doing for the first few years is collecting our measurement through the index, that as we send this out and send out more questions, see where staff is at. Through our updated budget request forms and our updated quotes and bids language, let's go ahead and collect the projects that use that and find out what's happening here. Are we having any difficulty with suppliers and subcontractors, things like that? And then as we move forward into our e-procurement system, then we can collect some of that more granular data that we're working on. And then in year 5, go ahead and update it. So we have a plan to kind of start small and build. Let's start, first of all, by all focusing on what we need to do and work on some of those systemic issues that are going to have a big impact down the line. So one of the things that I mentioned, go back here one, was that we had a little bit of difficulty getting this completed this year. Our HVAC replacement plan falls essentially to one man, and he's pretty taxed this year. And by the time we got to the training sessions and everything, it looks like he may not be able to do all of the research that it takes to figure out the most efficient replacement units for all of the city HVAC needs. So in one of our training sessions, we actually wrote up a budget request sample for him, explained its purpose and need, uh, wrote out the kind of narrative or examples on how you would do that to include a life cycle cost focus, that council wants it tied to city goals, and that you really want to note that it's going to benefit multiple departments. It's not just going to be one person here or one department. But in doing this and thinking, putting this all together, we realized, the city has a lot of goals here, and it might be difficult for them to know exactly which goal this ties to. So Kelly created a goals document where she pulled out all the sustainability and energy goals from all these city plans. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds of pages here. So I'm going to throw this back to Kelly for a second and let her talk a little bit about developing this document and its purpose.
Yeah, I consider this document to be sort of a stopgap measure tool before we have an e-procurement system in place that could make this easier. but I created a document for staff so that they could easily look at the actions and energy goals in tab form in an Excel spreadsheet of our 5 sustainability related plans. And I use this a lot when I present budget requests to Common Council because it's really helpful to tell Common Council when you're requesting budget that these goals and this budget request address 5 cross-referenced actions in our already approved city vetted plans. It just provides an extra layer of vetting to those budget request asks. So staff will have this and they can go through each plan. It's arranged more simply than going through the sometimes hundreds of pages of plan documents to find actions. Another thing that comes up often is staff will ask me, well, where are we now on our energy goals? Or what have we done regarding this action in the past? So there's a column that will also explain where we are at and what's been done so far in the city. I think this will become easier when we have an e-procurement system, but right now this is what we've created for staff.
And that's a good point, is that you're going to have to do some stopgap issues. And so this document, I think it's wonderful. And I think that staff is really going to appreciate using it. And the city administrators seem to really appreciate that Kelly went to the time of assembling it all together. And I have a feeling that they'd probably like to have all the other city goals there so that as staff have to fill out and tie their budget requests to goals, it would make it a little bit easier. So again, this is all in the, it all assists in our transition to an e-procurement system, which city administrators wanted even, before we started this project. So I thought you might have some questions on that. Does anybody have any questions about kind of our measurement and some of those documents?
I'm not seeing any questions. I do have one though about the documents you're creating. Is there a spot online where people can access these? Because I do think these are like really valuable templates, and I'm wondering if you have or if you're thinking about like putting them on your sustainability page somewhere. Or, they're just, I'm guessing that there are folks here who are like, hey, yeah, it would be good to see this as a template.
Yes. The answer to that is yes. And it is coming, but it might be coming a little later. So you see here that we have this year to kind of update guidance sheets, language, and links. And we're making all these updates here. But as you go through here, you'll see update and organize website with policy, supporting materials, energy metrics. So right now our ambitions are maybe a little bigger than we're capable of getting done and quickly. We'd like to have it all done quickly, but we do plan to put it on the website, to redesign the website, and to really make it a place where not only citizens but other people can go to and see our materials, share our materials, and so that not everybody has to build these individual sheets, and it'll be available to more people. Any other questions? I know I'm throwing a lot of information out there quickly. We just wanted you to see everything and see some of these examples of documents and slides and things that we've done over the last couple of years. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. So now I want to talk about our just-in-time training series. And I like to call it just in time because I think sometimes when you have a consultant come in or something, they give the plan and they're on their own schedule, and then they present and they go away, but it may not necessarily be near budget season or when staff needs it. So one of the benefits of actually being on the committee and working with the city is knowing a little bit about when this would really benefit staff. And essentially, without training, you're not going to get much implementation. Staff will try, but they don't know what's in your mind. And even when you write words down on a piece of paper without telling them, how to do it, without providing maybe an example here or there, it's very difficult. So we held a series of sessions over the summer, and we've got a couple more to go, where we gave an overview of the plan again in its final form, showed them how to go through the plan, how to use the materials. We had a guest speaker come in to talk about using the drive tool with fleet management. You saw an example from the budget request form update. Later on, we're doing language to update our RFPs, Qs, and Bs so that, when the contractors know that this is something that's important to Middleton. And we've created quite a few training materials. You saw the document that Kelly created, but during our training sessions, we also did some real basic core stuff, like what is sustainable management, where I defined kind of the three different types of sustainability. What is life cycle costing that you're asking us to do? Where did it come from? Is this new or has it been around a while? How does the state of Wisconsin feel about using life cycle costing? And so some of those that don't work in public works were a little surprised to learn that actually it's been required in a state statute for some time. I tried to provide a simple formula to explain it in a very kind of colorful way, but then give an example of, all right, maybe you need to choose between some systems. What do I want to focus in on? What's really important here? Can we talk about payback? This was really good for showing the cost efficiency of such the system. And then we introduced staff to some bigger concepts. One thing you might want to do is really get them on the same page that we're trying to make a big system here, and we're dealing with a complex system that affects a lot of different parts. We tried to tie it to our city as a whole, just change some language, and you realize, oh, we just need to think of the city as a whole and not get stuck in our own departments or committees. And I want to give a shout out to our city administrators. They are systems thinkers. They do have to think that way. And they really have stepped up, helping us, meeting with us, and they have embedded language in their own slides. They have updated materials to make it easier for staff to do some of these things that we're asking them. And it's really becoming a part of the culture. It's like, okay, this is where we're going right now. So systems thinking has a bunch of benefits that help you discover relationships and identify synergies. And so communicating that to all of the staff and showing them the connections between the economics and the environment and the social elements, it really helps them to understand, okay, you're not just this committee that's trying to do this one narrow thing. You're really trying to help us all and have us all work together to make the city better, which was our goal all along. So some lessons and strategies that we've learned. You really want to co-develop this plan with staff and your administrators. It improves everything. It increases buy-in and it develops culture. You should expect some skepticism, and with good reason. Sometimes policies come through and plans come through that haven't been well thought out, and they have had some bad reactions. So you need to show respect and listen to them, and listen sometimes to even some of the louder voices, because they will tell you how to fix whatever problem you have. Provide a little anonymity. I mentioned the importance of face-to-face meetings. That's very important. You got to get to know everybody, but you are seeking the truth, and some of the quieter voices may not feel comfortable speaking up. So send that survey and give them a chance to share some information in their own time. You want to plan big and systemically. You want to show how everything fits together, but you want to act small and strategically. This can become overwhelming. So pace your plan, pace your implementation. I think I originally started with a 3-year rollout, and one of the alders said, push that back to 5. And I think it actually works a little bit better as a 5-year plan. Start with your high impact, high cost procedures and items. And then finally, show some appreciation and follow up. If you say you're going to follow up or send an email, make sure to contact them. If they say they're going to contact you and things get busy and they don't, just follow up. Change is hard. You're asking people to change their behaviors, their routines, and in some cases, you might be asking them to change their beliefs. So be caring, be responsive, be helpful, and really thank people for the time that they're giving you. And so I just want to say thank you for the time that you've given me. And if you would like to contact us, we have our information available. We'll make the slide deck available to you. And I want to open it up one more time for questions. Anything you'd like either of us to elaborate on?
So we have questions in the chat now, Laura. The first one came from Greg May at the City of Madison, and he notes that Middleton's work kicked off a similar process that's unfolding in Madison right now. And their question is about enforcement and how do you get folks to actually follow up on the new rules and what your thoughts are on that. And you just did such a nice job of sort of talking about how you build a culture. So thinking about how do you integrate that into values versus maybe thinking about how do you catch people doing the wrong thing and but
Right.
comment on that a little bit more.
Okay, so that is a question that even came up as a concern or a question from staff, like, well, who enforces this? What's the chain of command type of thing? And so really where we started out was, let's start first of all with the big stuff, which is, I guess, trackable by the city administration. By starting with the budget request forms, they put um, a field in there for life cycle cost analysis to have you do it. So if they want to make a budget request and it's not in there, everybody kind of knows that. So it kind of tracks itself there. The same thing with the language in your quotes and bids. We're going to have some statements that we're going to provide to staff to always put in the quotes and bids. And that'll be very easy to track who doesn't, and it'll just be standard once we get the e-procurement system. But we can track, is that happening? Is staff doing this with our big things? And then we're having an annual report at the end where we kind of ask staff what they're doing. We also have, and I'll let Kelly talk about this a little bit, she may know more, but I have seen alders are asking other committees and staff to put in their narratives about what they're doing, what's their sustainability goals, what they've changed. So we see that kind of building over time, that instead of saying, I guess this is the carrot and stick version, instead of saying, you will do this and this is how it's done, it's like, okay, let's try this. Let's see what works. Let's look at how we're going. We've kind of made it part of measurement, I guess, is the short answer there. So Kelly, did you want to add anything to that?
Only that I think in our budget process, all the departments are required to submit metrics, and those are tied to our department goals, and we work on that quite extensively every budget season. And then I think mostly we're trying to embed this in our standard cities documents so that it's not always something that each staff member needs to think through from scratch, from the beginning, from the ground. They have language that is baked into their RFP proposals that go out to things are written into bids. And one example would be low carbon concrete mixes, which would be standardized in road construction or sidewalk projects. So some of this takes a while to set up. So that's why we are saying it will probably take 1 or 2 years to get that language the way that everyone feels comfortable having it and that there's quality control and all of that. So once we do have that, then that'll be something that'll be in our city documentation. And as much as we can do that and take decision making off the plates of staff for certain items is good. What was happening is that maybe a boiler would go out at EMS, and suddenly the chief is faced with deciding what boiler to select by the next morning. And it would be so much more efficient and helpful for him as well to not have to do that research, which isn't his expertise, and just have a replacement plan there to say, okay, it looks like this model is probably what we're going to want. We can call this number, have those systems in place, but it takes a while to change systems and processes. So that's where we are right now, is working through those internal processes.
And I would just follow up with that as we went through the plan development process, some of these issues, came up, like the boiler system. And I mean, who knows that the boiler went out at the police department in February, and so when you discover those through the conversations, that stuff was coming up in the face-to-face conversations. That's the type of thing that is like, oh, we could address this here with this activity here. And that's what helps with buy-in. I mean, I don't think that the police and EMS chief really want to be making HVAC decisions. So now they're all for this plan that's going to take that off their plate. So it's not all about adding to, some of it is about taking away of things that staff have to do.
I think that's a really powerful point, Laura. Yeah, and I saw that throughout what you presented, that you were really trying to hear what made things complicated for staff and trying to simplify it. And we know that people mostly want to do the right things, but if the right thing is 4 times as hard and I've limited capacity to serve my constituents, that isn't very practical. And so I think I love that is embedded here, that you're thinking a lot about how to make things easy. The other thing I just have to ask is me, because Middleton has been doing other recognition things, and I wonder if you've had any conversations about, like, I love that the council members are asking committees how they're doing with this, and it shows that there's people are engaged, but it seems like you might have opportunities to showcase successes, and if you've thought about that at all, that highlighting a department who really figures this out and moves it forward could be really powerful, partly because so much of what you're talking about is budget decisions. If you recognized my peer, I would pay attention to that.
Yes, and we have thought about that a little bit. Middleton has sustainability awards that the committee gives sustainability awards to businesses and to individuals. And just this year, I believe we added a staff component to that so that staff could be recognized. So that was, I think, one thing that came out of it, because every time I would present to the committee, I would say they're doing more than you think, and we're just missing some of it. We're not hearing some of it. And during those face-to-face meetings, I was pleasantly surprised at what all they had done. And I think some of the frustration was that we didn't know about it. So highlighting is very important. I have also learned that sometimes it's hard to say thank you. I've been trying to buy staff lunch for ever to say thank you for all this effort, but since it's a city government, there's issues with that. So just as a citizen, I'm like, okay, I got to be careful. I got to step back a little bit and make sure that I'm not breaking any rules, which, can happen by accident. So I don't know, Kelly, can you think of anything else? I think that covers what we've done, at least at the committee level.
Yeah, no, you covered it really well. I just think taking time out to celebrate wins is just as important as meetings to train staff on how to do things differently.
I did put that in let's see if we can go back to one of them. I did put it in one of our things at the very end. There it is. I said we need to celebrate achievements as a team. I thought I am going to put a party in here. If it is the last thing that I do, I wish that I had put it in the beginning, the kickoff, because if it's in the plan, if it's policy, if it's listed that we're going to have a party to work towards this, I think we miss a little bit of community sometimes, and celebrating as a team really emphasizes that.
Yeah, definitely. I would just say that there is plenty of research that really giving people that public recognition pat on the back is incredibly powerful. And it doesn't, like, sometimes we think recognition has to be like you have to get something, you have to like get some food or get some gift certificate. And research really is pretty compelling that like having council recognize four departments that are doing an amazing job with this would like put people floating on air. So I think you're well positioned for some of that. I am not seeing the other notes in the chat are comments, really not questions. I think I'll just call out Kevin had a note about how some of his push in Middleton was inspired by things former county executive Joe Parisi said about how Joe tried to encourage people to think about the sustainable options. I do think there's some magic in how these efforts that Middleton has been doing can inspire other communities and help have these conversations more broadly. And, these we're small and tight, and so we do inspire each other, and that's part of the point of all of this. Um, on that note, if there are not more questions, I will say that so this was an SLC webinar, which means we recorded it and we will post the webinar on our YouTube channel, and we'll send that link out to everyone who registered for today. And we'll also send out the slide deck to everybody, and you've got contact information for Laura and Kelly. And so I want to thank Laura and Kelly. This was such a Herculean thing you took on as a member of the committee, and it's really inspiring where you and Kelly brought this over the last couple of years. So congratulations.
Thank you for having us. And anybody who has questions, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.